Hey, kia ora, Helen Brahms here, coming to you live from Surprise in Arizona. Hope you've all had a super fantastic sparkling day. Welcome to Porchlight Letters podcast number 2187. And this is going to be a very emotional one for me tonight because I was not expecting to have to do this so soon. But tonight we honor Zephy. She passed away at 2:28 this morning Pacific time after several hours of so many seizures I lost count. She had her first seizure at 5:03 p.m. last night, her second one at 5:43. And then after that, it was anywhere from 30 minutes to 2 minutes between seizures for the rest of the night. And her final one, there was about an hour between the second to last one and the very last one. And I was thinking, oh, maybe we're getting over the hump. And no, we weren't. And every time she had a seizure, my hand was on her chest, so I could feel her heart racing. I could feel all the breaths she was taking. And there was a couple of times during the night where she stopped breathing, but I could still feel a strong heartbeat. So I gave her a little shake, and she suddenly goes, and then we're back. And I spent basically the entire night just sitting with her, laying with her in the family room. I did last night's podcast from sitting next to her in the family room. I haven't had a lot of sleep. I've had less than 3 hours of sleep in the since yesterday morning. So since I woke up yesterday morning at my normal time, 5 a.m., I didn't get to bed today until 6:44 a.m. and I was awake by like 9:20, 9:24. For some reason, I've been looking at the clock a lot lately, so yeah. So Zephy's passing was rough, but my saying that I wrote on the board next to Brad's bed the day before he passed was, no matter what happens, today is always super fantastic and sparkling. And I remember sitting next to his body, and all I could see was, today is always super fantastic and sparkling. And it truly was, because he was free of cancer. He was out of pain. He was free to move around. He could do all the stuff that he had previously done. He was no longer in a body that was damaged by cancer. In Zephy's case, it was a super fantastic, sparkling time after she passed, because she was no longer bound by the constraints of the seizures. She could roam free. She could do her Zoomies. She could play as much as she wanted to, and she was free to do all of that stuff that she had been constrained on. I do have to apologize for my appearance. I have not had a shower since yesterday morning. It's just been a day of. Yesterday was kind of rough. There was one part in the early morning where I thought Zephy was going to have a seizure, and so I had her laying down and did all the calming techniques that I had worked out when she was having the seizures back in January through December through January, when I could recognize the signs of the seizure. So I would get her to lay down and just keep her calm, and I would have music, quite quiet, calming music playing, and that would help calm her down enough that she would avoid the seizure. Last night, the 5:03 seizure, that I could tell before 5 o'clock that she was going to have a seizure, so I had her laying down before then, probably around, 4:50. We're laying there, and then she had the seizure at 5:03, and she had the seizure at 5:03. She was within 5 minutes. She was up and walking around, very, very unsteady on her legs. She kept kind of slipping and falling, and she went over to the water bowl and had a massive drink of water over there. And then she walked her way over to the sliding door, wanting to go out back. And I'm sort of like, you can't even walk, and you want to go out back? Okay. Who am I to deny Zephy what she wanted? And so we walked out back, and she was unsteady, and she would keep falling all over the place. And in the end, I just said, and she would like take a step and then wait and then go to take another step. And her foot, instead of going like this, would go like this. And so in the end, I just couldn't watch it anymore. I said, right, that's it. We're going back to lay down. And so I scooped her up, walked her back inside, laid her down on the floor on the mats that we had there with the pillows surrounding it, and got down on the floor with her. And then she had the second seizure at 5:43. The vet called us during just after that one had hit, and before 6 o'clock, when around 6 he called, somewhere around there. I don't even remember what time I went on air last night. I know it wasn't on time. And he says, just keep her comfortable. Try and get her to have, like, he says, get some Karo syrup and rub it on her gum so it'll get in there. I says, I don't have that stuff in my house. I've never liked Karo syrup. I've never had it in the house. Somebody told me one time that it would be a good replacement for golden syrup. There is no replacement for golden syrup. I'm sorry. They are two completely different products. One's made from corn, and I have no idea what golden syrup is made from, but it tastes much better than that corn syrup stuff. So I said, what about sugar water? I said, I have sugar. I had caster sugar. And he says, absolutely, just make up some sugar water and keep it on her gums, keep her gums moist. He says, don't put any in, don't squirt any into her mouth unless she's able to swallow, because otherwise she could aspirate. And I'm like thinking, oh, great. And I had a whole bunch of syringes, because with the medication she was on, it had to be administered by syringe into her mouth because it was liquid. And so I just grabbed one of those spare syringes and was just using that to put drops around her gums and rub it into her gums. And there was times that she would have her tongue hanging out of her mouth, so I would just squirt it on her tongue just to keep her tongue wet. And there was one period, I think it was like about 30 to 40 minutes, where she was in one type of seizure or another. She was having a seizure, like she'd have a seizure that would last, if these seizures would only last like about a minute at the most. And this one would last like about 30 to 40 seconds, and she would be out of it for about a minute or two, and then she'd go into another seizure. And when she's out of it in between, she is fully conscious. Her eyes are fixed on me. Every time I told her I had to go to the bathroom, she would go into a seizure. She did not like the idea of me leaving her there by herself. And I said to her, look, don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. And I would literally, because the master bedroom was on the other side of the family room wall, but you got to go through the family room, dining room, kitchen, across the hallway, and then down the other hallway to get into the master bedroom where the bathroom is. And so I would literally run that and then run back to her. And then when I came back, I would either fill up my water, grab something to drink, make a protein shake, make her some more sugar water if we needed to. And but her eyes were following me from when I walked back in the room. You could see the look of relief on her face that I was back. And her eyes would follow me all around the kitchen as I was making protein shakes, making her sugar water, all that sort of stuff, grabbing something to drink. And then I'd be back down beside her, and you could see her go, like she's here. Like she would have a sigh of relief. But we spent so 5:03 was when the first one struck. 2:24 was when she when she expelled her final breath and her heart stopped. I actually had my hand on her chest, and I could feel that she had stopped breathing, which she had done a couple of times before. And but I could feel a strong heartbeat. So I would just give her a little shake, and she'd go, and then we'll be okay again. But that last time I couldn't feel her breathing, and I kind of looked at her mouth, and she's laying there with her mouth open, tongue hanging outside, and eyes fixed. And so I gave her a little shake, and there was no breath. And all of a sudden I realized her heart had stopped as well. And so I looked at my phone. It was 2:24. Sorry, 2:28. I don't know why I keep thinking 2:24. It's 2:28. 2:28, 2:24. Jeepers, now I've even forgotten when my dog passed. Bad mum. Bad dog mum if I've forgotten that little tidbit of information already. 2:28. It was 2:28. I've got it written down everywhere. It was 2:28 when she had passed. And so I texted my mum and dad to let them know. And my mum called me immediately. And her and I are sitting there crying on the phone. And she says, what are you going to do now? I says, well, I have to call the emergency vet, because I can't leave Zephy's body laying here on the floor until my vet opens. And I said, I think they open like around 9 or 10 in the morning on a Sunday. And, that's hours away. We're talking 7 hours away at least. And so she's like, what are you going to do? So I'm going to call the emergency vet that we've been to before and see what their protocol is. And then I'm going to have to take her in. And Mum made some comment, and I turned around, some comment about something. I says, yeah, I'm going to have to get dressed because I'm in my PJs. And I was in my PJs. and in the end, it was like, screw it. I'm going in my PJs. So I went in my PJs. And I said, I will have to put a bra on though. My mum starts laughing. So bra on, shoes on, in my PJs. I found a large beach towel sheet that we had, and I carefully wrapped Zephy up in it and carried her out to the car and placed her in the car and said, we're going for our final ride. And I never thought my final ride would be to the emergency vet. And we got there around 3:20 in the morning. And they were absolutely lovely with taking a gurney out to place Zephy on it and taking her back. They even asked me if I wanted a private room so I could say my goodbyes. I was like, no, I already said my goodbyes to her. But on the drive there, it was surprising how many people, one, how many people are on the road at 3 o'clock in the morning, and two, how many houses had lights on with people moving around in them at 3 o'clock in the morning. It was very surprising. And it was on we're talking Sunday morning. And I'm like, wow, there's a lot of people up and about. But we got there, and they were lovely, and they asked me if I wanted to have a quiet time with Zephy and say goodbye. I says no. I said I've already done that, and so they brought back out the towel and her mat that they picked up out of the car. Brought that back out for me, and I got home just after 4 o'clock in the morning. By the time everything was done, and I thought, and I was like completely shattered. I was so tired, and I was just so tired. I thought, okay, I'm going to go to bed. And I was like, no, I can't go to bed just yet. My brain was on fire. And so I sat down and just started writing down every memory I could remember of Zephy, through all the tears and everything. Sent messages to family and friends, and then did my Facebook post. And after all of that was done, it was like, and I'm sitting here at 5 o'clock, at 5:07 in the morning, typing away, and I hear this noise. And I'm like, what the heck is that noise? And I couldn't, and because the house is like completely quiet. It's like so empty right now. And I could hear this weird noise. I was like, what the heck is that noise? And I suddenly realized it was my alarm clock. Now, my alarm clock is one that starts off very quietly and gets louder and louder and louder the longer you leave it on. So I went down and turned it off and realized it was 5 o'clock in the morning, and maybe I should go to bed. But after that, I came back and did my Facebook post and all of that. And then finally got to bed like 6:44 this morning. But I only slept to 9:24. And laid in bed for a little bit and thought, and actually when I woke up, I was laying on my left side. So I reached across like I normally do when I wake up on my left side, and was patting the other side of the bed, which is where Zephy slept. She had her bed made up on the other half of the bed, and she wasn't there. And I popped my head up like, where is she? And then I suddenly remembered, and I was about to call her, and I suddenly remembered that she won't be coming. So it's just the little things. But she has been my constant companion for the last 5 years, 8 months, and 10 days. 10 days, 11 days. She's been by my side all the way. We have had times when we have been separated because I've had to go to California or on whatever trip I had to go on, where she's been with a dog sitter. But she's, and that's just a very small amount of time compared to the 5 years. What was it? Jeepers, 5 years, 8. Oh, I had it worked out. 5 years, 8 months. Yeah, 5 years. Where is it? 5 years, 8 months, and 11 days, including today. But here's the interesting thing: 5 years, 8 months, and 11 days equals 2,080 days that we've been together. On Thursday, I celebrate the year 6, which is day 2,191, 111 days. So there's been 111 days from when I started my podcast to when I got Zephy. So, well, actually, and the rest of this week as well. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday will have to be added onto that as well. So it's 111 days out of the last 6 years that she has not been by my side. But we've been on many, many adventures. She traveled over. When I first had a vision of her on the 23rd of June, 2019, when I was doing my Bible study, I opened up and it was the book of Zephaniah that morning, which is where her name comes from. And I was sitting there going, Zephaniah, that's a really cool name. Zephaniah, Zeph. The moment I went Zeph, I had a vision of this dog's face. And I looked at this vision and went, are you Zeph? And it cocked its head like to say, well, what do you think? So I had my journal there, and I wrote a page and a half in my journal about this dog, Zeph. I was going to go and pull it out, but I don't remember which box of journals that journal is in. I have way too many journals. Some are full, some are partial full. This one's in a full one, but I have boxes of journals that are packed up, and it's in one of those boxes, and I just didn't have the time or the heart to go and pull it out. But there's a page and a half written in that journal on a dog called Zephy that was a German Shepherd mix. I put in there that it was male and 70 pounds. When I met Zephy, she was female, and so that's why she got the Y put on the end of her name. She was a German Shepherd mix. She was known as a mini German Shepherd. And the 70 pounds, no, her top weight was meant to be around, healthy weight was meant to be around 45, which is what she, actually, I think she was less than that when she passed. When we were at the vet's Saturday a week ago for her 2-week checkup, she was at 45, just under 45. She had dropped 2 pounds in that 2 weeks between the visit, and I know that she's dropped more this last couple of weeks because she hasn't been eating a lot. But on Wednesday, we had a very interesting time. Not every now and again, I go to Zephy. She'll be like laying on the floor or whatever, and I'll just scoop her up. And she knows she's about to be scooped up because she will suddenly roll onto her back, curl her tail up between her legs, and just lay there like, I just want a belly rub. And then she goes all floppy. So if you try to slide your hands underneath her, she's like this Raggedy Ann doll. But I scooped her up and cradled her with her head here and sat in the recliner here and put the footstool up. And normally she will only stay for like 5 minutes at tops. I'm lucky if I get 5 minutes. And she doesn't like being in that position. But I had her there and she just relaxed into my hold. I was relaxed. She was relaxed. And I looked down at her and we sat there for over an hour connected with our eyes. And I had this feeling deep inside that she was saying goodbye. That was on Wednesday. And I even texted my mum that night to say that Zephy and I had this moment for like an hour and a bit. It was over an hour. And I said I felt like Zephy was saying goodbye. And last night, after the second, when she had the next, probably about an hour later, I wondered if she was going to make it through the night. And at some point, either before midnight or after midnight, I told her it was okay. I said, like, here's a situation. You're having all these seizures. You may or may not make it through the night, and that's okay. I said, if it is your time to go, then go. And go with love and go with gratitude for all the amazing time that we've had together, all the adventures and everything else we've done together. I said, it is time for you to, if it's time for you to go, then let go and go back to being an angel among the angels. I'd had an encounter with medium, psychic, clairvoyant. I'm not sure which she was. It was very unexpected. It was very surreal, but Brad came through unexpectedly to her and told her that Zephy was an angel sent from heaven to watch over me. So she's been my little angel dog. And I said to Zephy, I said, if it's time for you to go, it's okay. You can let go. I will miss you like crazy. I said, because you've been my constant companion for these last 5 years, 10 months, and 10 days. You've been my constant companion. And I have loved all the adventures that we have had together. I've loved the moments. I've loved when you have taken me out and taught me to be present. And there's times that she would come up and put her paw on my leg as though to say, enough, come on, I want some attention, or let's go. You've had enough of this. Or she would come up to me when I'm sitting on the couch on my phone or on my laptop, whatever, and do the same thing there. Or if I was, and normally when I'm eating, I'm sitting there playing solitaire on the iPad. So she would come over and put a paw on me, and as though to say, enough, get off the electronics. And she would teach me to be present in the moment. And I have this really cool photo, and I'm not sure if it's one that I included on Facebook, but it's a picture of her when we were at this really cool RV place that only had 10 slots, and it was at a vineyard. And 8 of the 10 slots were full with full-timers, and he only had 2 that were allowed for transient people. It had no facilities, but it had full hookups. So we had the sewer hookup, we had the power hookup, we had the water hookup. It was a full service pull-through site. It was fantastic. It was all this level gravel sites, but you could go for a wander through all of their vineyards. They had these beautiful all the grapevines and everything else, and they encouraged you to go for a walk through them. They had this mess of a bush area thing that was kind of between the campground and the thing, which had a trail that you could go through, and it came out in the vineyards, or you could go around the other way and it came out in the vineyards. And Zephy and I loved walking through there. It was so peaceful and so quiet. And she would stop and smell the flowers. And she always, whenever we went for a walk, if there were flowers around, she would stop and smell them. And this one time, I happened to grab a picture. For some reason, I have my phone out. Normally, I have it in my pocket when we're walking, and I am not on my phone when we're walking, unless I have to take a really cool picture. And for some reason, I have my phone out, probably to take a picture. And I turn, and Zephy's there sniffing these, and I managed to get a picture, and she was sniffing black-eyed Susans. And it's just a great picture, and I think it's the only picture I ever have of her smelling flowers, stopping to smell the flowers. And so she taught me to get away from the electronics, and she was basically teaching me what I've been brought up with, is being present in the moment. Life will go on, things will still be there, but it's time to take time out for yourself. And she taught me that and made sure that I did it. And there were times that and so last night when I was laying with her and stuff, I was retelling all of these memories. Do you remember the time we did this? Do you remember the time that we did that? And remember the time that you, what did she, something that had me crazy. Oh yeah, she was an escape artist. She was at the dog sitter's, had her crate there. It was a wire crate that had a bolt at the top and a bolt at the bottom. And she literally chewed her way through the bolt at the bottom to get out of the crate. And like the dog sitter said, I put her in the crate and locked it to take the kids to school. And when I came home, Zephy would meet me at the door. But I also know too, from the first dog sitter that she had when we were living in the San Diego area, we had this wonderful two ladies who shared this house together, and beautiful ladies, beautiful personalities. They had both been around dogs their entire lives. One of them bred German Shepherds and Poodles and had been a dog trainer and showed dogs. The other one, she was also a dog trainer as well, and done other stuff. And she was actually an opera singer, a beautiful opera singer, and amazing woman. And Zephy absolutely fitted in with their dogs, no problem at all. But they needed to keep her out of the bedroom area of the house. And so you go in, and there was like this big, you come in the front door, and there was a gate there, and there was the formal living room off to the side, and you'd go through the gate and into the family room, breakfast, dining area, and there was the big kitchen. And then there was the hallway that went off down to the bedrooms, and then there was a door that went out into like a solarium area. And then the door went out into the backyard, and they actually had the backyard had a double gate on it as well, and had had an 8-foot high fence all the way around it. And so Zephy's running around with these two dogs and playing with them and everything else. But when I left her there, I came back to pick her up a couple of days later, and they says, "Your dog is very smart." Now, as soon as I hear somebody tell me, because I learned this with Gus, as soon as I hear somebody tell me that your dog is very smart, they did something. I go, "What did she do?" And they said that down in, I can't remember her name. It was an unusual name too. Odie? Down in this woman's room, the one that was the opera singer, down in her room, she has this little ball of fluff. It literally was a ball of fluff that had a nose and a mouth on it. I can't even tell you what type of dog it was. It was just a white ball of fluff. And she has her special toys. These are small toys that are just for her. And she keeps them on top of the dresser. And the dresser was a 4 or 5 drawer high dresser. Zephy had figured out where those special toys were kept and had somehow gotten them off the top of the dresser. Since I did not know the layout of the bedroom, I don't know how she got them, but she came out of the hallway prancing, head held high, toy in her mouth, and prancing, coming out going, "Look what I did. Aren't you proud of me?" And so then they decided, okay, we need to block off the hallway. And they had like a big hutch dresser on one side and a bookcase on the other side. And so they took this wire fencing that you use to create play areas for dogs when you want to keep them separated, like a playpen. And they slid it behind the bookcase in the Dutch dresser. So the opera singer one was in the kitchen, and she hears a noise, and she turns around, and there's Zephy with her head turned on her side, mouth around the wire, tugging it from behind the hutch dresser that was there. And she got it open, and off she went down the hall, got the special toy, brought it back out again. And so these two women then had to figure out how to stop Zephy from going down there. And I said, it didn't work, did it? And they went, no. They said, we tried every configuration we could think of with this wire fencing. We even put cardboard over it and did this, that, and the other thing. And nothing would stop her from figuring out how to open it and get down the hallway to these special toys. I said, why didn't you just close the bedroom door? So she was a smart cookie, that one. It's like the very first time I said we were expecting stuff at the campground. We were expecting a delivery of groceries at the campground. And so I told Zephy, this is the first time I said it to her, as I said, Zephy, patrol. She was on the bed in the bedroom. She comes off the bed, goes down to the front of the RV, hops up onto the dashboard and stands there. Looks this way, looks that way, and looking all around. And I'm watching where the person is on the finder thingy. And then the car comes and pulls up in front, and she stops and looks at it and waits until the person gets out, gets the groceries and starts walking towards. And then she jumps off there and starts whining in one of her alert whines. She had several different types of whines, and came running over to me to let me know. And she sat there and whined at me, and then she got up and went back up onto the dashboard to see where was this person. And that was the first time I said to her, patrol. I had never trained her on that. She figured it out herself. And so whenever I told her to patrol, she would go to the window and stand there and wait for the car to pull up out front. The other term that I said to her was buckle up. And we were in the RV. We were ready to go hit the road that day. And I had a leash that buckled into the seatbelt, and then that buckled onto her harness. And she could lay between the two captain's chairs, or she could sit on the co-captain's chair, and that was as far as she could go. She could not get onto the dashboard, which she found out the hard way 3 separate times on 3 separate occasions. She decided she wanted to get up there. Didn't work. And so again, she was down in the bedroom. Everything had been closed up. Everything was ready to go. I'd done the walk around to make sure we put everything away. All the doors were locked. Everything was pushed. All the slides were in properly. Done my walk around check, like a pilot does a pre-check for the flight, for the plane. You have a pre-check for RVs before you hit the road, and then walked around the inside of the RV, made sure everything was where it should be for when we're traveling and all that. And Zephy was laying on the bed asleep, and she had her harness on. So I went and sat into the driver's seat and started the engine, and I go, Zephy, buckle up. She came straight down, sat on the doghouse. Now the doghouse on a gas RV, a Class A RV, is the hump in the middle that you use to access the engine. It's got a piece that you can unscrew to access the engine. Makes it very much easier to do if you're doing the dips. If you've ever seen a dipstick on an RV, it's about this long. And you can't pull it out from the front. You've got to pull it from above. So you go and undo this, and you've got access to some of the pieces at the top of the engine there. And it gets very hot when you're driving. Zephy's favorite place to lay was as close as she could get to me on her bed between the two seats with her head on top of the doghouse, so that I could just reach down and give her scratches while we were driving. But yeah, first time I said Zephy, buckle up, and she comes running down, sits on the doghouse with her feet on the floor. This was her favorite way to sit. If there was a pillow or a step or something that she could sit, put her butt on, her feet would then be down on a lower level. That was her favorite way to sit on anything. And so I buckled her up. And then after that, the buckle up became the command to, we're ready to rock and roll. Let's get you buckled up. And even when we're in dog parks, I'll just go, Zephy, buckle up. And she would go over. She would kind of come close to me and then walk ahead of me to the gate where I would hook her leash on, and off would go. So she was very good with that command. And again, she taught herself that one. So very smart dog, great companion. We had a lot of great adventures. And she loved making friends, whether they were 2-legged or 4-legged. And the donkey, if you go to my Facebook page for the with the eulogy on there for Zephy, somewhere in the 70, however many shots there are there is a video of her trying to engage a donkey. It was the funniest thing. And she was determined to get that donkey to take notice of her. And she was trying all sorts of things. But it's a short 1 minute something video. It's really hilarious. So, I was just regaling story after story after story of all the people she had met, the other dogs that she had met. And we were at where was that one? We were at one campground. They had, the dog park was an acre. And so she could just zoom. And there was another solo woman traveler who was there. And at the front desk when I was checking in, they said, oh, we have a woman solo traveler here who's looking to connect with other female solo travelers. I went, okay. And they said, and she has a dog and da-da-da-da. And so she actually came over to the park, the dog park. After we got set up, I took Zephy over to the dog park to let her run some energy off. And so she came in with her dog, Orion, and he was a pit bull. And those two dogs connected and chased each other and played. They weren't interested in any other dog that came into the dog park. The other dogs just kind of stayed around this one area where the adults were standing and just kind of like played around that area. Not Orion and Zephy. They were round the perimeter of the thing, chasing each other, playing, ruffle and tumble and everything else. And then when it was time to go back, we walked back together, and they were in an Airstream across the road and several sites down from us, and we got to their place first. And so we said bye to them and switched numbers so we could, when we're going to meet in the park and that sort of thing. We go back to our RV. Zephy goes in the door, gets a drink of water first, and then hops up on the couch, puts her feet up on the windowsill and looks out the window and starts whining. I'm like, what the heck? And then I realized she could see Orion's Airstream from our place. And when we went to the dog park, I text what did I say her name was? Michelle. I can't remember. Wanted to text her to say, hey, we're heading over to the dog park. And so we walked over to the dog park, and we couldn't get hold of her. So we walked over to the dog park, and Zephy was wanting to walk up to the door of the Airstream. Like, we're walking up there, and she's like we're going over here to the door. I says, no, we're going this way. They may not be up here. And she was not happy with me. But yeah, those were some of the fun things that we've done over the time, and some of the fun places that we've been to. And there's a couple of campgrounds we will never, ever, 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 ever go back to. They've got like a black mark in my log. I actually kept a log, and the dog park was one of the things that we rated in there. And there was one where the dog park was so disgusting. It was basically a 12 by 12 fenced off area, and it was full of dog poop. I didn't even let Zephy in there. So like, yeah. And that was at a KOA, which surprised me because they're usually really good with maintenance, upkeep and all of that. But that was just basically full of poop. It was a 12 by 12 square. I was not letting my dog in there. So she never got off the leash at that campground. And then the other one was, where was that one? Oh, it was in El Paso. It was just like this big parking lot area. And we went down to the dog park area, and it's asphalt. The whole campground is asphalt. And we went to the dog park area to let her do her stuff and all of that. And there's broken glass in there. There was trash in there. It was disgusting. And so I said to Zephy, I says, right, you can go over here, because I checked the ground, and I said, you can go over here. And so she goes over there and pees. And then she pooped, and we were out of there. I gave her the spots, and she went in that area. We picked it up, put the poop in the trash, and went back to the RV. But you were only there for a couple of nights. And so that's another campground we'll never go back to. But yeah, we had so many adventures in the RV. And she was always making friends. And if we were at a campground, and one of the campgrounds we were living at for a couple of years, there was this couple who had dog treats and asked if they could give her a dog treat. So every night we went for a walk, she would go past their place, and she'd pull me off. If they were out on the front porch, she would pull me off over there. If they weren't out on the front porch, on their patio area, which was all undercover and everything else, she wanted to go and say hi. And I said, like, no, they're not home. And I got told off the whole walk, all the way back. The whole walk. She wouldn't shut up. But she will very dearly be missed. I've already struggled today with not having her in the house. You know, waking up and reaching for her and her not being there. Expecting to hear the patter of her feet behind me, because most of our house is tile. And whenever I would leave the room, you'd soon hear patter, 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 as she would come following me to go do whatever I was going to go do. So she, missing the patter of her feet, missing her laying on her couch or on the floor on her mat, and just looking at me. And if you've been watching the videos and stuff, you've seen her on this chair with her head on the thing, just watching me. And, I don't get that feeling that I'm being watched anymore. So I've lost that feeling. I don't hear her in the house. This house is too quiet. I've already got the second load on of her bedding stuff, because when she was laying on the thing last night, whenever she'd have a fit, she would pee. And she pooped a couple of times as well. On this one, it was kind of funny. Yes, last night she's having seizures, but there was some funny moments in there. Now, in the 5 years, 8 months, 10 days that I've had Zephy, she has barked, with the exception of last night, she has barked a total of 4 times. 4 in 5 years. I lost count of the number of times that she would bark and howl last night. And I have to say, she had a great set of pipes on her, and she had these very melodic howls that she had. And I'm like, girl, so what are you doing hiding all this beautiful talent? It was just such a joy to hear this noise, even though she was in a seizure when she was making these noises. It was just amazing to hear these beautiful melodies and howls come out of her. And her barking, she had different ranges of barking that she was doing as well. There was one that was very ear piercing, that time that it vibrates in your ears. And I was like, will you please stop barking? But she was in the middle of seizures as she's doing this. And on her very last seizure she had, I actually videotaped it because something made me videotape it, because I wanted to capture her barking. I hadn't thought about it all night. And so I videotaped some of it, and I stopped the videotape, put the phone down, and it was maybe a few seconds later that she stopped the seizure. But she got into this running, like she's laying on her side and she is running fast. She is running so fast, she's almost spinning herself around on her mat. My hand is on her chest, holding her in place against the pillow, so she can't really go anywhere. But her legs were like full gallop. And quite often when she would bark, she wouldn't bark in her sleep. She would yip, not a full bark. She would yip, and she would run. And I would say to her, I said, are you playing with Bear and Gus? And Bear and Gus are my 2 previous dogs. And I said, are you playing with Bear and Gus? And she would look at me and sort of say, and look at me with a look of like, I'm not telling. And so I was saying that to her last night. I said, are you running with Bear and Gus again? And it was not long after I put the phone down from videoing her in the middle of that seizure while she's barking, that she passed. So, but she will very dearly be missed. And we've got so many memories over the last 5 years, and I've given you 37 minutes of them. But she will always have an extremely special place in my heart. And sitting here on the table is one of her favorite toys. This is her little bear. You are bearable. And this would sit in the corner of her bed on my side. So I have a king size bed. I have a quilt that is folded up as part of her bedding, and then she has like a dog blanket that lays on top of that. And there's a pillow at one end to raise that end of it up. At the other end is a dog bed that has soft sides on it, and this would sit in the corner of the dog bed. And she would quite often use this as a pillow. You quite often see her hugging it. She'd have her paw over it. She'd have her head on it. So I brought this little guy down to sit here on the table with me. But she's gone. But she'll always have a special place in my heart. And but I did tell her that was the other thing I was in the middle of telling at one point. I did tell her that if it was time for her to go, then that was okay. I would miss her and miss her presence and everything else. But I know that she'd always be watching over me. And I said, I'll be okay. I said, it'll be hard at first, but I'll be okay. If it's time for you to go, then please go. And know that you go with my blessing and that sort of stuff. And I said, but if it is not time for you to go and you want to fight the crap out of this thing, I am right here with you to help you fight as best I can. So I said, you know what the decision is going to be. You do what you have to do. But know that I am here supporting you 100%. So, but we spent the night just laying there telling story after story after story. And I said to her, who was I talking to today? Myself. I said, I think I was talking with myself this day. I had a lot of conversations with myself today, that I still have a voice. I am very surprised I still have a voice after all the talking, the hours of talking I did last night with Zephy, just to let her know that she was loved, she was appreciated, talking over the memories that we had, telling different stories. Yeah, but it was really funny. I sung at her at one point, and she kind of like pushes up like this, like, what the heck? I'm like, oh, you don't like my singing? After all this time you're telling me you don't like my singing? Okay, I won't sing. And then she just laid back down. But she actually pushed herself up on her front paws and turned her head and looked at me like, what the heck are you doing? So there were, even though we were under a very stressful time, I was there present with her in the moment with her. I was not wanting to go to bed or anything else. My body was tired. My head was tired. I was tired, but I was not leaving my dog. I was staying there. I had a feeling she wasn't going to make it through the night. I just didn't know how long it would go for, and that was okay. I was going to be there for her for every breath that she had, for every seizure she went through. I was there. I was constantly squirting sugar water onto her gums, onto her tongue, but not into her mouth unless she was swallowing at the time. But yeah, I was there with her and present with her every second of the way. And we had our laughs. We had lots of tears, lots of laughs. And it was just, I felt honored to be able to be there with her through that whole, however many hours it was last night, from before 5 o'clock last night to 2:28 this morning. And even beyond that too, because I just sat there stroking her, and then I was talking with my mum, and I was still sitting there stroking Zephy, and then after I got off the phone with mum, still took me about 5 minutes before I got up and started getting ready to go and take her to the vet. So, but yeah, so R.I.P. Zephy girl. I am so grateful. I am full of so much love and gratitude for that dog, that we came together when we did, the adventures that we have had, the love that's been shared, the loyalty, the companionship. She's a dog in a million. She really is. And I'm going to miss her like crazy. But I am so blessed to have had her as part of my life. She was an incredible dog, and she'll always be there with me, watching over me. She'll always have this very special place in my heart, as does Gus and Bear. So there are some reflection questions. There are some reflection questions down below, and just replace Zephy's name for any pet name that you have had, for any pet that you've had pass, and put them in place of Zephy. Because I don't even remember what they are. What is one memory of Zephy that will always make you smile? Whatever she did. Whatever she did. She always made me smile. How did she help you become more present in your life? She made me put down electronics. She would sit there and stare at me until I put stuff down, or she'd come and put her leg on me. One time she sat on my feet to get my attention. She found ways to get my attention, as though to say, enough. And like if I went to get back on the computer after I closed it down for the night, she would follow me in here and sit right here and just look at me. And I go, look, I have to do this one thing. So I wasn't allowed to open any ancestry trees, because I knew the one thing would turn into multiple and would be there for hours. What parts of her personality will you carry with you as you move forward? Like with any animal, their ability to be present, to live in the moment, to live with unconditional love, loyalty. They just teach us so much. They get knocked down, they get back up and keep going. And how can you honor her legacy in small ways every day? Well, this is one way I can honor her legacy, and just thinking about her each day, reminding myself that I have to get off the computer. I won't have a four-legged furry friend to remind me anymore, but taking that time to get off the computer and do some of the stuff that we've been talking about over the last 13 weeks, about being present, becoming the promises, the permissions that we give ourselves and things like that. She helped me learn all of that. So that's something I'm going to be doing every day to honor her, is taking that time just to lay down all electronics and just be present. I'm not sure if I'm going to go for walks or not because we have a beautiful park area here, and I always enjoyed walking with Zephy in the parks. Maybe I will go take a walk in the park and sit on a bench somewhere and just be. I don't know. What are you going to do to honor your pet's memory? So take those reflection questions and adapt them to your situation with your pets. And if you do have pets, go love them. But just go pour some loving on them. If you've got family around you, go pour some loving on them too. You never know. You never know when their time is up on this earth and they're going to transition. And I was so honored to be part of Zephy's life, to be part of her transition, and just to be able to be there with her in that moment for however many hours we sat there, laid there, while she was going through all those seizures and things. So with that, and my saying is, no matter what happens, today is always super fantastic and sparkling. And Zephy is now free of the canine insulinoma that she had, which limited what she could do because it caused the pancreas to overproduce insulin, which would cause her blood glucose levels to drop, which caused the seizures. So the steroids were meant to keep the numbers even, keep the numbers up, and we just had to keep her eating regularly, which is why the sugar water last night. And I even asked him about maple syrup, but Zephy didn't like the smell of it. And it was 100% pure maple syrup. And I emphasized that because some maple syrup have flavorings and stuff added to them. Why? I don't know. Just make it 100% pure and you're golden. But Zephy didn't like the smell of that. I put a little bit on my finger one time and gave her to sniff, and she just walked away. Like she did with any fruits and vegetables. She was only interested in the meat. Quinoa she would tolerate. Quinoa and pumpkin were the only two things that she would eat that was not meat. And eggs. She loved her eggs. Yeah, so there were eggs, quinoa, and pumpkin, and meat, and cheese. But cheese is not good for dogs. If you give them too much, they get diarrhea. So she would get just a little bit every now and again. Yeah. Anyway, and she loved French fries too. Anyway, thank you for sitting here. Thank you for being part of my tribute to Zephy. God, I'm going to miss that dog. But anyway, I have to go because I've got to go get on a Zoom call with my mum and dad. So go out, have a super fantastic, sparkling evening. And we will catch you guys back here tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. Pacific because I've got my AI class on tomorrow night. So we'll be back here tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. Pacific. Hey, konera.